Hello everybody and welcome to day one of our customizing meal plans unit. So we'll be adding to this every week on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Occasionally there will be just one poster in the week just because of the content and what we end up adding. But for the most part it'll be every Tuesday and Thursday. But we're going to kick off today with just a very simple substitutions, like just some quick things that you can do to help make your meal planning easier when you follow the meal plans. You know, going into this, I knew that there's not any way possible for me to create 100% of the meal plans that 100% of you guys are going to love every single thing that I put in them. We're all different. There's people who have allergies, there's people who have food aversions, there's people who just don't like simple, certain flavors. And so I want to be able to empower you to be able to make those exchanges really easily so that you don't mess yourself up. And so to give you guys kind of an example of what I'm about to talk about, let me do this. Let me jump in. We'll make it easier. So customizing meal plan, simple solutions. Okay. All right. So simplest solution of all is, find a completely different recipe with similar stats. So if there's a recipe in the meal plans that you're just like, that's not going to work for me or my family, simply go through the other recipes that you have, because hopefully you're saving them. And if you're new, save them. So here's kind of some tips. If you are on balanced macros, I highly suggest saving both balanced macros and simply balanced. If you're on balanced keto, save balanced keto and simply balanced. And the reason I say that is occasionally there will be different recipes, or what will be different is that the serving sizes will be different. So let's say that you need to make a substitution for a recipe that has 8 servings, but you're only going to use it one day instead of 2, then you need something with 4 servings. And there's a chance that that same recipe might be in the simply balanced at 4 servings or at 2 servings, and then you just double it. So I would save both, and that way you can cross-reference and know that you've got those recipes. Another thing you can do is, if you don't like something in a day, guys, just go pick another day from that month or that week and just do that day twice. So just cook the dinner again, increase the portion. So, just replace the whole day. Don't even worry about substituting out one meal or one item. Just pick a whole different day. You can do that with so many of the recipes. Now, it's easiest if you stay within that same week. But there's also chances that you can substitute a completely different day from a completely different meal plan. So that's just keep the days in line. So 2 of the easiest things to do: find a completely different recipe with similar stats. Just look at the nutrition information on the bottom and find one that's close. Now, the reason I say that find one that's close is because, you guys, I know we track. And I know there is so much satisfaction in hitting that 40-35-25 or that 60-25-15. But here's the thing. Nutrition is not rocket science, okay? It's like horseshoes. As long as you're close, you're good to go. So we have a 3% wiggle room in our macros before things kind of get wonky. We have 50 or more calories wiggle room before anything is really truly off. So if you're over by 20 calories or 40 calories or even 50 calories, guys, that is so minute and so minor in the big picture that it's not going to impact your weight loss in the slightest. You would have to increase calories by 500 or more calories every day to gain weight. Okay, so 50 calories, 100 calories is not going to make a hill of beans of difference. Now, if you're on keto and you're only getting 40 grams of protein instead of, what your tracker says you need based on your calories, that's a big difference. Instead of getting 60%, you're only getting, 50%. That's a big difference. But if you need 60% fat and you're only getting 57, that's okay. Or let's say you get 63 one day, that's okay. We just have to really watch that we keep things as close to those numbers as possible. I try really hard to stay within 2%. Rarely will you ever see me go over 2%. There is a couple days here and there, especially like around the holidays or special occasions, where I'll hit that 3% on one thing, which then causes the other things to be off by 1 or 2% because it all has to add up to 100. But guys, that's so minor. So as soon as you can wrap your head around the fact that, you know what, as long as I'm close, I'm good. Now, if you're getting crazy and you're hundreds of calories over or under, which is not good, we don't want to be hundreds of calories under. So as long as we're above 900 calories and as long as we stay within a couple of percents of our macro balances, we're great. You know, guys, I did, I got off track with things over the holidays due to some personal things that are going on. I mean, there's a lot going on in my world. I'm now living in Georgia and, anyways, it's kind of crazy. And so I got off track. Obviously, I'm human, just like everybody else. But on January 4th, I started getting back on track. But you know what I did, guys? I didn't even track for the first week and a half. I just started tracking this week because I just couldn't. So what I did was I got really simple. I made sure I ate a protein ball every morning. I made sure I ate one of my recipes for breakfast, whether it was a Greek yogurt with all bran buds or one of the egg muffins. And we actually made the green chili chicken egg muffins. I ate one of my recipes for lunch. I made sure that my snacks were things that you guys see all the time on the meal plans. I either had a Built Bar or I had, some turkey pepperoni and some fruit or, any combination of those things that you guys see on the meal plans. I made sure that every single dinner was my bariatric kitchen recipe because I'm cooking for 8 people right now. I normally don't do a nighttime snack because I'm just not a big sweets eater, but if I did want something, I would have like a little Built Bite, or I would have another Greek yogurt. I made sure that I got my water in, and guess what, guys? I lost 7 pounds in 10 days. So just by eating what I know I should be doing, okay? I didn't track, and I'm not advocating that you don't track because honestly, it kind of unnerved me that I wasn't tracking, but I had to make choices. Is like eat super healthy, the foods that I know are good for me, and follow the schedule, the outline, the plan of what I know I should be doing, and it worked. Okay, it worked. I wasn't hungry. It was great. And I even had one splurge day in there because my sister and I had a day where we were binge watching a show that we wanted to catch up on with my youngest daughter. And we made some desserts and things that were still healthy, but they were keto as opposed to balanced macros. So I had way more fat on one day than I should have. But still, I lost 7 pounds. And so it's guys, it's not rocket science, okay? So breathe in this. Let it be okay. But if you're one of those that is stuck to those numbers and you have to have those numbers, guys, you're going to drive yourself nuts. You're going to stress yourself out. It's not going to be enjoyable, and you're just going to make it harder, okay? So with that being said, going forward, let's talk about some things that we can do to substitute. Okay, so substituting eggs. There's a couple of things that we can do. If you just can't eat eggs, or maybe your cholesterol's high, these are all things that just depending on your situation you can do. You can use egg beaters or egg white substitute. 1/4 cup is the equivalent of 1 egg. Okay, so most of the recipes you can use that equivalent. And of course, 1/4 cup is 4 tablespoons. So if you're only using an egg white, then you're going to want to use 2 to 3 tablespoons of egg white substitute. Egg whites, so 2 egg whites equal 1 egg, about. But guys, again, this is where it's not so finite that you have to be like, oh my gosh, I have to measure out exactly 2.5 tablespoons or whatever. So don't do that, okay? Don't do that. So 2 egg whites or 1/4 cup of egg white substitute equals 1 egg if you are not wanting to use eggs. Something that we can also do for people who, and I do have a couple people with egg allergies, you can do flax or chia egg substitutes. This is really, really popular in the vegan world. And I gave you guys a link to one of the best, recipes for how to do this to substitute eggs. It just simply requires you to grind the flaxseed or the chia seeds and mix them with hot water to make a slimy egg substitute. And it works in almost every recipe I've ever tried it in. I like to use the chia seeds over the flax seeds simply because they typically have a little less flavor. And the beauty of using chia seeds is that you're getting the omega-3s, because a lot of us have aversions to fish. And so the omega-3s from chia seeds can really help with warding off cancer and a lot of health problems. You can also just opt for another recipe with similar proteins, carbs, and fats. Just look for other recipes. Another thing you can do that is in most cases really, again, close, remember we're playing horseshoes, is to substitute a Greek yogurt with 1 to 2 slices of turkey bacon to make up the fats. If you're on keto, you can also add some chopped up macadamia nuts into your Greek yogurt, or some chopped up almonds. Now, macadamia nuts will have more fat, which we typically need for keto, but for balanced macros, you can use the Greek yogurt. And guys, here's the thing too. We have 2 different kinds of Greek yogurts that we work with, that I use regularly in the meal plans. We have the Dan Enlighten Fit, which is 80 calories, and then we have the Oikos 000, which is 110. So, and obviously the 110 is going to have higher protein and higher carbs. So if you need more carbs and more protein, then go with the Oikos 000 or even a Chobani. I love Chobani. I don't use the Oikos 000. I use Chobani. Or I also use the Dan Enlighten Fit for when I only need an 80 calorie, slightly lower macro balanced item. And then, add the turkey bacon or add the chopped almonds. But a lot of times, if you just add those in and kind of play with the calculations a little bit, you can totally match a recipe that would normally call for eggs. If it's higher in carbs, the egg, thing, that's typically balanced out by the Greek yogurt. If you need more protein, a lot of times you get the extra protein from the turkey bacon, so it does end up balancing out. Okay, so simple substitutes for eggs. All right, seafood. Seafood is a tricky one because some people are allergic to fish, some people are allergic to shellfish. I mean, there's a lot of things going on with that. But some simple substitutions, and again, I can hit things more closely as we move through. But for seafood, typically for salmon, things like that, you can substitute out boneless, skinless pork loin chops, or boneless, skinless chicken thighs in most recipes that use fish. If it's salmon, you're going to want to use chicken thighs. If it's cod, you're going to want to use chicken breast. But a lot of the recipes, and some of you guys have heard me say this before, and some of you guys have even noticed it, like I will have a raspberry chipotle salmon, and then I also have a raspberry chipotle pork loin, okay, or a pork tenderloin, because the recipe flavors are so complementary for both kinds of protein. So you can use the salmon and pork chops a lot of times interchangeably. Not always, but a lot of the times. You can also, if you don't like salmon, you can also substitute different seafoods. So for like salmon, some similar things you're going to be able to add would be Atlantic char, bass, ocean trout, and then add some fat somewhere because the salmon is a little bit fattier fish. And typically that's just, maybe adding a half teaspoon or so of butter to a vegetable or to your quinoa, or a handful of almonds or a tablespoon of macadamia nuts. I mean, there's lots of things that you can do to add that fat in. For cod, good substitutes are sole or haddock or pollock, if you don't like cod. Flounder, you can use any flaky whitefish. I didn't put that on here because I don't get a lot of complaints with flounder. Canned tuna, you can always use canned chicken or canned turkey. Or if you don't like tuna, you can always use canned salmon. Just watch the fats so that your fats aren't going over. For canned salmon, again, you're going to want to add chicken, canned turkey. You can use tuna, but you're going to have to add some fats in because, again, the canned salmon is going to have slightly higher fats. And that's simply done, you guys. You can add it in the meal there by adding in, perhaps if you're making a salad, instead of using, 100% Greek yogurt, use a little bit of light mayonnaise. A lot of times that will, so maybe do a 50-50 blend, and that will give you a little bit of fat to make up the fats in the salmon. If it's, a dinner recipe, like for salmon cakes, or something like that, then typically the cheese and things will make up the balance. But you may want to again add some fats, like some butter or something to a vegetable like broccoli. Add a little bit of butter to it. Just track it. And know that you don't have to, just because the addition says a teaspoon, you can change that to a half teaspoon or even a quarter teaspoon of butter, because a little bit of melted butter can go a long way. And it may add just that little punch of fat that you need. Okay, substituting beef. We don't use a lot of beef, mostly because of the fats and mostly because a lot of bariatric patients have a hard time digesting it, because we tend to overcook it. I don't, but a lot of you guys do. Hopefully you guys saw the information about beef that I posted recently when I talked about the cooking temperatures. If not, I'll repost it. But guys, with beef, we overcook beef a lot. And once you overcook it, it becomes incredibly hard to digest and we lose some of the nutrients. So beef is best served medium to medium rare. It's actually easier to digest and it's actually more flavorful. When you look at the plate, a lot of us think that we're seeing blood on the plate. You're not seeing blood. Okay, that's not blood on the plate. So I'll post, my handout about beef for you guys so that you guys will understand what I'm talking about. But one thing that we can do, we can substitute, if it's ground beef, we can substitute ground turkey. Sometimes we can substitute ground pork, especially if it's a keto recipe, because we need the higher fats. But notice I said ground turkey and not ground turkey breast. Okay, anytime we substitute a higher fat meat, we want the ground turkey, and there's a difference. Ground turkey also includes the breast meat and the dark meat, so the fat content is slightly higher, as opposed to ground turkey breast, which is drier and lower fat. I personally almost never use ground turkey breast. I almost always use ground turkey for that reason. It's softer. The fats are a little bit higher, but again, it's not a big deal, when it comes out. But I know that for the recipes, some of you really want that ground turkey breast. A lot of times you can also substitute boneless pork loin chops. Or a pork loin roast. Like if it's a roast, sometimes you can chop up the roast and use it in a stew with the pork, just like you would the beef. You can also use boneless, skinless chicken thighs sometimes to substitute beef. It just really depends on the recipe. So with beef, if you don't want to make one of these substitutions, then find another recipe. Okay, but if the recipe just sounds too delicious and you like everything in it besides the beef, then here's some things that you can do to substitute. Pork, okay? Pork, again, we talked about salmon earlier. Yes, you can substitute salmon fillets for pork. In most, not all, pork recipes, you can substitute with salmon. You can also, again, substitute ground turkey, not turkey breast, but ground turkey, boneless, skinless chicken thighs. Sometimes, again, you have to watch the fats. You can substitute very lean cuts of beef, like eye of round or sirloin. And generally, though, you have to have a smaller portion size because, again, the fats are higher, except in keto. In keto, generally, it works out. But for balanced macros, typically you can only do 3.5 ounces as opposed to 4. So your portion size is a little bit smaller. 97% lean ground beef is also for ground, anytime we're using ground pork, a good substitute. If it's bacon that you want to substitute, you can also substitute turkey bacon. Okay, so that's a fairly even swap. But your fats are going to be off. Okay, now I don't use real bacon a lot. I do use it occasionally. So if you do use turkey bacon in a recipe that calls for regular bacon, you are going to have to adjust the fats by adding a little bit of olive oil to the recipe. And typically it's only, a teaspoon or so to get, what we need, because rendering bacon in a recipe is going to leave fats, like the Spanish chicken. The Spanish roasted chicken uses bacon fat, and which gives it flavor. But if you don't have enough fat from the turkey bacon, which you won't because there won't be any, then you'll have to add a little bit of olive oil to offset that so that you have enough to cook with. So, okay, substituting chicken. I don't have a lot of requests for this, but that is something that we could do. Some people can't handle chicken breast. And again, some of that is because we overcook it and we turn it into like this dry, almost jerky state. So the key is get a meat thermometer, learn how to cook the chicken so you don't overcook it. You can use thighs, but you'll have to watch the fats and the protein will be slightly off. Again, we're playing horseshoes. We're not target practice, okay? We don't have to hit the bullseye. So a lot of times it's really close. Your fats are going to be a little higher, so you're going to have to watch the fats during the day, and generally adjusting your afternoon snack, by cutting out a little bit of fat there in that afternoon snack, if you have fats there, will make up that difference. Thighs, if you're wanting to substitute thighs, you can use breast, but again, you're going to have to add fats in this case, and again, the proteins will be slightly off, but that's okay. A little bit is not going to hurt. Another thing you can substitute for chicken thighs would be boneless center cut pork loin chops. Very similar stats, and you typically don't have to adjust it much at all. So those are great substitutes for chicken. All right, substituting Greek yogurt. I do have some people that don't like Greek yogurt. Now, cooking with it, there's not a lot we can substitute. But typically cooking with it, it's going to take on the flavor of sour cream. And I would be hard pressed to believe that you could taste it if we're using it in a recipe. So I would still use it in recipes for cooking, but if you don't want to sit down and eat a Greek yogurt, you could use cottage cheese, use a low fat or fat-free cottage cheese with added fruit like berries, unsweetened peaches, things like that. You could also substitute pretty easily some low sodium lunch meat like turkey or ham. I like the Boar's Head brand because it typically is lower in sodium. And then add a fruit, and a good fruit to have a similar caloric value and a similar stat is a half cup of unsweetened applesauce, because that's 12 grams of carbs. They're healthy carbs, but they are the 12 grams of carbs that you would normally get through the Greek yogurt like the Dan and Lighten Fit or the Oikos 000. You can also use turkey jerky with a fruit, unsweetened applesauce or something like that, to substitute as well. So those are a couple of substitutes for that afternoon snack. There are other things, guys. The thing is, sometimes you just got to get in and play with it. You've got to learn what those things that you can substitute are. In the Bariatric Basics, I talk about those foundational favorites. And this is where having those foundational favorites is really important, because if you have the same 10 to 20 items that you can mix and match and plug in, and you're pretty familiar with what their stats are, not only are they always going to show up in your favorites on MyFitnessPal, but you're gonna know. Like right now, guys, I know if I'm balancing a day and I get down to my snack number 2 and I need to balance out my day, I know without even looking, okay, if I do about 2 ounces of this, or if I do a cheese stick, or if I do, it's gonna equal what I need because I use them so frequently, and they're the same 10 to 20 items. Berries, carrots, applesauce, apples, natural peanut butter, natural almond butter, almonds, macadamia nuts, Greek yogurt, all brand buds, various deli meats and things. I know what those stats are for all of those pretty closely. I mean, I can't always quote them, right offhand, but I know that if I play with them, I can get things to balance. And here's another thing, guys. Just because a serving size, let's say a Chobani Greek yogurt is 5.3 ounces, you don't have to eat 5.3 ounces if you only need 4 ounces to balance your day. Okay? If a serving size is a 1/4 cup of blueberries and you only need 2 tablespoons, then just eat 2 tablespoons. Same thing with applesauce. You don't have to eat a 1/2 cup of applesauce. You can eat a 1/4 cup. You can eat 2 tablespoons. I mean, there's so many ways that you can tweak things. So change those measurements to get what you need. All right, so that's it for basic substitutions. Let me get back. Oh, come back. All right, come back to what I need. Where are we? No. Come on. I don't know why it won't let me get back to... There we go. All right, there we go. Okay. It's like it was frozen for a second. So those are simple substitution, guys. Things that will make your meal planning easier. As we move through, I'm going to go in and start honing in on some of the individual things that can help. But honestly, this is the best place I can give you to start. You know, I am going to talk about also how to prep things later in the course. To overlap things for easy prepping. And I'm looking at the post that you guys gave me with all the requests. So I will try to incorporate as many of those as I can into things. If I have addressed your request, I will delete your comment. So if you go back and you're like, my comment's gone, it's because I've addressed it already in one of these. If you need further clarification other than what I've already done, please just add a note of what you need further clarified, and I will do my very best over the next month, to 6 weeks to make sure that you get what you need. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for being a member. I appreciate you guys so much. And believe it or not, you help hold me accountable as well. So keep doing this. You guys are going to be fine. Remember, it's not rocket science. We're playing horseshoes. We just have to be close. All right, talk to you guys later.